Hi, welcome back, guys. This is your friend. Welcome to Fanfiction World with another fiction. What if Deku and Bakugo and their unbearable bond? Now, before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you more want video like this. Now, let's get into the fanfic. It took you a week or two to get used to the strict training regime set by All Might for you and Izuku using the aim to pass American Dream plan. Even our sleep schedules are set, you muttered. For what seemed like the first time in his life, Izuku was speechless. Suddenly, All Might, in his buff form, sidled up to the two of you. Frankly, this is a super hard schedule. Can you both follow it? You pumped an arm, which seemed to encourage Izuku as well. Hell yeah. Of course, All Might. The first month or two was pretty difficult, but soon you got the hang of training. Of course, you still wanted to die of exhaustion every now and then, but at least it wasn't all the time now. Sometimes you would catch Izuku working out in class too, somehow sneaking in small handheld devices that he would subconsciously squeeze even when he was dozing off. This caused you to do the same, although you had to hide it from your parents who were always worried about distractions in class. After all, this was for the future, and as they say, no pain, no gain. It was only when one of the teachers karate chopped Izuku on the head in the middle of a lesson did you realize that maybe Izuku was taking this too far. He'd been muttering up a storm and had seemed barely even conscious. The people around him sans Bakugo had been staring at him like he'd killed their dreams of being a hero, instead of the other way around. After hissing and angry, "Keep your hands to yourself, sensei," and waiting impatiently for class to end, you approached Izuku, who didn't even notice your presence, which was unlike him. "Izu," you said, trying to get his attention. Huh? Izuku jolted and nearly fell out of his seat. Luckily, you managed to steady him with a hand, but it had been cutting it a bit too close. "Oh, hi, Anan. Hey, you're overexerting yourself, aren't you?" You got straight to the point. He looked nervous upon hearing your question, which you said more like a statement. He laughed tiredly and had the nerve to try and deny it. "Oh, of course not. What makes you think that?" You stared pointedly at his eye bags and unfocused pupils. "Gee, I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that you like the incarnation of death. Or because you can't seem to keep your eyes from closing every 2 seconds. Or because you can barely stand up. Or..." Okay, I get it," he groaned. "Why are you so perspective?" You squinted. Literally anyone can see it. You remembered the looks your classmates had been giving him during class. "Hey, keep your eyes open," you added with a soft pat to his cheeks when you saw him nearly conk out again. "Seriously, you need to take it more easy. We have to work harder than anybody else if we want to become heroes," Izuku protested. He stands up and grabs his backpack. "We're already years behind everybody else. Overworking isn't the way to go," you insisted. But you took his hand and led him out of the classroom. "It'll just set you back because of the stress and lack of energy." Izuku sighed, seemingly giving up. "Okay, fine. I'll take it easier." He didn't. Or maybe he did. But the change was so small, it was barely noticeable. He still looked like he was on the brink of death every day in school, and you could see how he was struggling to move while training. Clearly, his body couldn't take all the work. This was made all the more obvious sometime later, while Izuku and you were jogging, while All Might rode along on a Segway. You were carrying what seemed like the heaviest mini fridge in the world, whereas Izuku was unluckily lugging a bulkier metal safe. You'd been jogging for the past hour or so, but after training like this for the past 7 months, you had gotten used to it. Your pain tolerance had gone up, too. And you made this discovery when you accidentally dropped a toaster oven on Izuku's foot and got away with nothing but a small ache in your own. "Thanks to the soulmate bond. I'm so sorry," you'd exclaimed as he hopped around on his other foot in pain. This was all thanks to All Might's personalized schedule that you had been following almost religiously ever since you received it. Izuku, as mentioned before, did not. You had noticed him looking worryingly pale at the 45-minute mark of the run, but he had waved away your concern. It seemed too much for him after a while, however, and soon he toppled over next to you. Izu! You gasped in shock as you came to stop yourself, almost throwing the stupid mini fridge to the ground in your hurry. You rushed back to Izuku and tried to help him up. All Might stopped his Segway and stepped off, turning back to the two of you. Hey, what's wrong? There are only 3 months left. You won't make it. You winced and gave up trying to help Izuku sit up. He was only dead weight at this point, seemingly only half conscious and unaware of his surroundings. I think he's been overworking himself, sir. All Might frowned. Overwork? The aim to pass, American Dream Plan, was adjusted with your body and mind to make sure you'd make it in time for the entrance exam. Overdoing it will have the opposite effect. That's what I said. You mentally agreed, but outwardly you settled for rubbing Izuku's back in what you hoped was a soothing way. Don't you want to get in? All Might continued. Suddenly Izuku started moving. I do, he said hoarsely. But I can't just get in. In and I, we have to work a lot more than other people, or we won't be able to catch up. I want to be like you. Now he was trying to get to his feet, and you offered your support by looping your arm around his torso and slinging his closest arm around your shoulders. He glanced at you gratefully, but his attention quickly returned to the hero in front of you. I want to become the greatest hero, just like you. A curious look flashed through All Might's eyes, as though he just realized something. Before you could give it much thought, however, he buffed up and had snatched Izuku from your grasp by the collar like a mother cat holding her kitten. You go get her, fanboy, he declared, completely ignoring the fact that Izuku was limp. I like that. But if that's the case, then you really can't rush things now. But I understand your feelings. Leave it to this old guy to adjust your plan. All Might, you started. You're not old. Izuku finished your sentence. All Might only laughed. Then came the day of the entrance exam, February 26th. Izuku had barged into your room at 4 am. Why in the world did you think it was a good idea to give him the spare key? To wake you up from precious sleep, carefully not waking your parents. Apparently he thought that the two of you would be able to clean up the rest of the trash today, so you could only blearily dress yourself and allow yourself to be dragged to Dagoba Beach. It's so dark, you complained later as you dragged one of the remaining tires toward the entrance. I'm starting to think it'll never become daylight. Izuku looked over at you from his own pile of litter. Yeah, but aren't you excited? The exam's today, and that means we'll be getting his power soon. Ugh, but my beauty sleep, you mourned. Izuku muttered something that sounded like, you're already beautiful, but you weren't sure. Though when you asked him to repeat himself, he only turned beet red and said it was nothing important. This led to more silence as the two of you continued working, but it wasn't awkward. An amazing thing about being best friends with someone was that periods of extended silence were rarely ever awkward or tense, if there wasn't an argument, at least, and the silence could even make you happy. Fast forwarding to 2 hours later at 6 am, you finally cleaned up your pile. Panting heavily as you threw the last clump of rusted metal onto the collection at the entrance, you turned to look for Izuku. Hey, Izu, you done? Izuku cut you off with a triumphant shout that spread across the now empty beach. Yet, you finished? Holy cow, Izu, you've got a strong pair of lungs. I wonder how they are in bed. You pondered before blushing a deep red and punching yourself in the face. No, bad in. He is an innocent broccoli. Keep him out of those thoughts. I don't even like him in that way, right? But those smut fanfics about FFD though, replied a small part of your mind. Shut up. Thankfully, the internal voice did. Hey. You jumped at the sudden voice. You recognized it as All Might, though, and turned to look at him. He had a look of surprise on his face as he observed the clean sand and gleaming waves, and at that moment the sun chose to start shining dramatically. This is an epic, revealing scene in an anime if I ever saw one. Even the parts outside of what I assigned have been cleaned. Seriously? Oh my goodness. He poofed into his buff form at the last word. You felt proud of yourself and of Izuku. You had both managed to do this much in only 10 months. All this junk had accumulated over the years, and returning nature to his original appearance had never felt better. Speaking of Izuku, however, you moved your gaze to him, and almost had a heart attack when he started to sway. Oh my god, Izu. You tried to run to where he had started to fall with the last of your energy reserves. But All Might was much faster, and was able to safely catch the greenette. Good work, he said. Izuku weakly smiled and blinked up at his mentor. All Might, we did it. You ran down to the both of them, trying your best not to slip on the sandy steps. You reached them and tried to avoid looking at Izuku's shirtless body. It was kind of hard, and you felt a little awkward. You shoved it out of mind though, since you felt like you wanted to sleep for months on end, and just held one of Izuku's hands in both your own. We did it, you echoed. Yeah, you both surprised me, you entertainers. All Might set Izuku down. Teenagers are amazing. Here, take a look. He pulled his cell phone out of his pants pocket and tapped on the screen a few times before turning it around to show Izuku a picture of him from 10 months ago, crying and unable to pull a refrigerator. He then swiped to the right, and you saw a picture of when you had embarrassingly passed out on Izuku after only pulling a stubborn washing machine out of the wet sand it was buried in. It was not a good memory, and you had half a mind to snatch All Might's phone from his hand and delete the picture that could serve as potential blackmail if it made its way into the wrong hands. This was you, 10 months ago. All Might made eye contact with the two of you. Then he grinned. You both did good. You really did. The mirage of it is finally just barely visible, but you have certainly become a suitable vessel. You could tell that the last part was mainly directed toward Izuku, since he was the direct successor of One for All. You beamed, your eyes burning as you struggled to hold back your tears. Although you pretended it didn't hurt, being told by your peers that you couldn't become a hero due to your weak quirks. Did you hear? LN has 2 quirks, but they're both useless. That's even more sad than having just one horrible quirk. I know, right? She'll never become a hero. You think you can get into a hero school, LN? Maybe you should give it up. Someone like you could never get in when there are so many other better candidates to choose from. And the thing was, the people who said you couldn't become a hero weren't even trying to insult you. They saw it as a fact of life, and casually mentioned it as though simply commenting on the weather. It's raining. In could never become a hero. Oh, look, the sun's coming out. In's useless. It was poor Izuku who faced most of the bullying due to his quirklessness, though, so you couldn't complain. It would be nice to show them that you definitely could become a hero, and that their opinions meant nothing. Plus, it wasn't just any hero school she would aim for. It would definitely be UA. Movement from Izuku next to you made your inner thoughts of proving yourself cease. He had turned his gaze down, lowering his head and lifting the hand that you weren't holding. I feel like I'm cheating, he murmured. You did all this for me. I'm too blessed. He didn't try to hold his tears back like you did. In true Midoriya fashion, he just let it all out. He's right, you agreed aloud, shyly shifting your weight from one foot to the other. All Might, out of anyone you could have chosen to inherit your power, it was him. And me, I guess. But it's mainly him. Izu's always wanted to be a hero, and he's always had the spirit of one. I always found myself wishing that my second quirk would be powerful just so that he would be able to use it thanks to the bond we share. That's why I'm so disappointed with my candy quirk. I just wanted Izu to be happy, but I couldn't do that. I'm so grateful that you decided to give him that chance. Thank you. You dropped your upper body into a perfect 90-degree angle bow. "NN," Izuku exclaimed, and it seemed that his crying had intensified. Don't be disappointed with your quirk, please. And I've always been happy just because you were with me. I felt like I could do anything with you by my side. I still do. Let's wield this power together and be the best heroes we can be. Yeah, you squeezed his hand with yours, and he returned it with another squeeze. All Might chuckled from where he stood. Well, we'll have to fix those leaky eyes of yours, he joked as he pat Izuku on the back. Now, it's time for the award ceremony. Midoriya Izuku. Yes, sir. All Might plucked a hair from his head and held it out. This is something I was once told. Something that you receive because you're lucky, and something that you are given because you are recognized are different in essence. Take that to heart. This is power that you earned because of your own effort. In my hand, eat this. The hair? You thought in horror. Izuku looked as horrified as you felt. Huh? It doesn't really matter what it is as long as you take in my DNA. All Might sheepishly rubbed the back of his head. It's too different from what I imagined. Is your power really passed down this way? You asked incredulously. Now, there's no time. You'll be late for the exam. Come, come, come. You quickly scarfed down the Ochazuke in front of you. Thanks, Mom. This is delicious. This is perfect for giving me energy to do the exam. Your mom exchanged a look with your dad from across the dinner table. Honey, about that. Are you sure you want to take the entrance exam? Your dad followed up. Oh, right. They think I only have the soulmate bond and candy quirks. What do I say? You took your time finishing your last bite of rice before speaking. Of course. This has been my dream my whole life. You know that. Plus, Izu's going too. I'm not going to let him take the exam alone. Your parents winced. Now your mom spoke. You know that we just don't want you to get hurt. Yua has a history of having risky tests that frequently end with at least one person injured. If that person's you, she faltered. It's fine, you protested. I either get in Yua or I don't. There's nothing to lose by taking this test. But I'm going to do my best either way. You stood up and made quick work of washing your ceramic bowl and chopsticks at the sink. Upon finishing, you dried your hands with the towel hanging from the oven and headed to the front door. I have to go now. Izu and I are going to walk there together. Your dad stayed silent where he was seated. But your mom came to help you hold your backpack as you stuffed your feet into your sneakers. You stood up and grabbed your backpack, turning back around to open the door. Hey. Your hand floated above the doorknob, not looking at your mom, but your quiet state was enough to tell her that you were paying attention. Good luck out there, she finally said. You smiled and rotated your head slightly to meet her eye. Thanks, Mom. See you later. You look at your dad, but he wasn't looking at you. Your smile slightly dimmed at that, but you still said, Bye, Dad, before exiting your apartment. And then, let's go. You closed the door behind you and spied Izuku. Your smile came back full force. Coming, Izu. The both of you walked to the subway, enjoying each other's presence. The ride to the station closest to Yua High was about 7 minutes, but it felt like you were there in no time. You were still quiet until a couple blocks later, when Izuku suddenly broke the silence. We have to hurry if we don't want to be late, he said as he ran a few steps ahead of you. He must have seen the time on his phone and panicked. I thought for sure you would have lost your stomach after eating that hair strand, you commented as you sped up to a light jog, deciding not to mention that even if the two of you walked, you would have probably still gotten there on time. What did it even taste like? Izuku looked back at you and furrowed his eyebrows. What? It's not every day that someone gets to eat the #1 pro hero's hair. Can you really blame me for being curious? I bet you even wrote down what it tasted like in your notebook. Wa? No, I didn't write it down, or even think about it. I would much rather prefer to forget all about it, please. Geez, okay? You pouted, but you quickly stopped when you finally arrived at the entrance to Yua. Wow, we're really here. We made it. Izuku finally stopped running and started walking at a considerably slower pace. You followed soon after. Although in the end, we didn't get to test out the power we received from All Might. It's all right. We can learn as we go, you reassured him. You would later regret your words. Izuku still looked unsure. I swallowed the hair. But did I really receive his power? You wanted to reply. But at that moment you were interrupted by a certain explosive blonde. Out of my way, Deku. Kaken, Izuku exclaimed. Katsu, you said at the same time. Katsuki only scowled. Don't stand in front of me. I'll kill you, he snarled. Immediately you and Izuku jumped out of his way. Morning. Let's both do our best, Izuku stuttered. You just waited for Katsuki to pass by, hoping that he wouldn't start blowing up at you and your best friend. You almost couldn't believe your luck when he really did just pass you by without a second glance. Wait, why did he even have to tell us to move? There's enough space on either side of Izu and me for him to walk through. Hey, isn't that Bakugo? The one with the sludge villain? A random auburn-haired male on the side asked his brunette friend. Oh, he's the real thing, replied the other guy. Speaking of which, Katsu hasn't done anything to Izu recently. He hasn't insulted me either. In fact, it seemed to be ever since the sludge villain incident. I wasn't there, but it's obvious that he's changed since then. Next to you, Izuku heaved a sigh of relief. He'd most likely also been expecting some kind of verbal assault from Katsuki. Then, as though reading your thoughts, he said, Kaken hasn't been very mean to us lately, hasn't he? You gave him a curious look. I was just thinking the same thing. Think he got affected by a personality switch quirk? That's very unlikely. I don't know. I was just putting out an idea. You shrugged. Anyway, we should get going before we're actually late. Izuku nodded, and his face schooled itself into one of concentrated determination. Let's take the first step to becoming a hero. And then he fell. The end. Just kidding. Izuku had taken only a single step, but was so clumsy that he managed to hook a foot behind his own leg. He tipped forward in what seemed like slow motion, and you felt like you were trying to move through water as you tried to catch him. Before you could, however, some other girl had rescued him. This resulted in the greenette floating several inches above the ground in a strange position. Izu, you cried. Are you all right? The mysterious girl asked with concern. Izuku freaked out and started running in midair. You hasakist, he yelled, and you sweat dropped. Sorry about that. It's, nerves and stuff, you explained to the girl. Now that you were paying attention to her, you noticed that she had an interesting haircut, with short cropped brown hair in the back with longer bangs in the front. She was also wearing the traditional female's junior high uniform, although she had wrapped a dark burgundy brown jacket around herself, and she'd also slipped on some leggings underneath her skirt. Her eyes were wide, and there were small pink ovals on her cheeks. Overall, she looked like a pretty kind and cute person. Mysterious girl only smiled at your reply, and she helped Izuku rotate his body and return to the ground. The whole time she did that, Izuku looked at her dumbly and didn't say a word. You had to hide your laughter at his face with a series of coughs that didn't even shake him out of his daze. After making sure that the boy was safely on the ground, Mysterious girl clapped her hands together and gave a closed-eye smile. It's my quirk. Sorry for using it without asking first, she said brightly. She gave a small chuckle at her own words before continuing. But it'd be bad luck if you fell, right? You looked at Izuku, waiting for him to say something, but he still maintained his surprised Pikachu face. Although now there was a small tinge of red on his cheeks. You frowned at this, feeling an unfamiliar emotion bubble up inside of you. Why is he staring at her like it's only the two of them that exist? The girl turned to you. I heard what you said earlier. Aren't you guys nervous? Izuku spazzed out next to you and couldn't seem to control his voice. Let's do our best. See ya. And with that, mysterious girl waved and proceeded to make her way up the steps. Bye, you muttered before shaking the wide-eyed and frozen Izuku. Maybe there actually was something wrong with him. Bro, are you okay? I talked to a girl, he blurted out instead. His eyes shone with pride and disbelief, and he had a slightly scary smile. He was still blushing, and a few drops of anxiety-induced sweat rolled down his temple. What? What in the world? I am genuinely concerned now. And, hey, I'm a girl, aren't I? You demanded, slightly insulted. Oh, of course, and then he'd realized his mistake, it seemed. HMPH, you said, and you walked into Yua High. You ignored Izuku's small, hey, wait up, behind you as he nearly tripped again trying to catch up to you. After finding the auditorium thanks to a sign next to the door that read, Yua High School Hero Course Exam Orientation, you found a seat somewhere in the middle near the back and made yourself comfortable on the seat's cushion. You'd forgiven Izuku about 4 minutes ago, but apparently he didn't get the memo since he was still profusely apologizing next to you. I promise I think you're a girl. B, but you're pretty much the only girl I talk to. The only one my age, I mean. And it was a stranger, too, she talked to. You finally stopped giving him the silent treatment and gave him a friendly punch in the shoulder. Dude, I get it. I was just joking with you. I'm not that mad. But, am I too tomboy-ish or something? Am I not girly enough? Izuku sighed. Oh, okay, that's good. Shut the fuck up, shitty nerd. A familiar angry hedgehog made his presence known as he unceremoniously plopped himself down on the seat on the other side of Izuku. You're so fucking annoying, I swear to God. Why are you even sitting there? You leaned forward to make a face at Katsuki from around the mail between the two of you. There are so many other seats you could sit at, but you chose the one right next to the guy you allegedly hate. Katsuki turned an angry red. Did I fucking ask, Butterfinger? He raised a fist threateningly, and the telltale smoke of his explosion quirk trailed from between his fingers. You immediately leaned back and raised up your arms in surrender. Wow, okay? It was just a question. No need for your asshole self to go off. You bitch. For all you Examine listeners tuning in, welcome to my show today. Someone interrupted. You looked at the stage, since that was where the voice originated from, and saw Present Mike with his trademark blonde cockatoo hair and dark hero costume. He was covering his face with his gloved hands though. He probably wanted to make the orientation as dramatic and Present Mike-y as possible. Hell yeah, I love Present Mike. You inwardly cheered. He's such a cool pro-hero. The loud blonde enthusiastically uncovered his face and shouted. Everybody say hey. Nobody said hey. Present Mike, being the awesomely extroverted and unabashed person he was, merely shrugged. What a refined response. Then I'll quickly present to you the rundown on the practical exam. Are you ready? Nobody responded. Yeah, apparently he decided to just fill in the silence himself. Meanwhile, Izuku was muttering next to you. You could practically see the pink sparkles around him as he went off with one of his infamous hero analysis tangents. It's the voice hero, Present Mike. Wow, I listen to him every week on the radio. I'm so moved. All the teachers at UA are pro-heroes. You awkwardly patted your best friend on the shoulder in an attempt to get him to quiet down, since he was the only one speaking in the absolute silence and had been attracting the attention of the people around you. Katsuki wasn't even looking at Izuku and just stared straight ahead. Shut up, he growled. As it says in the application requirements, you listeners will be conducting 10-minute mock urban battles after this. Present Mike yelled. The giant screen behind him changed from displaying the UA logo to a diagram. In the largest green box, "You are here" was written, and was also connected with lines to various small squares, which were named with the letters A, B, C, D, E, F, and G along with coordinating colors of the rainbow. You can bring whatever you want with you. After the presentation, you'll head to the specified battle center. Okay. Nobody responded to his question. Okay? Nobody responded to his question. Again. Instead, everybody looked at small slips of paper. You looked down at your own. At the very top in the middle, it said, Exam Ticket. Below that read, Examinee Nome 2235, and Test Location, Battle Center C, while directly on the right there was a picture of you beaming. You cringed upon seeing it, as you always did whenever you saw a picture of yourself, but pushed it out of mind. There was also some more general information about you below all that. But because the author can't read Japanese and the anime doesn't translate the information, you will always wonder what it says because all you see are just some random lines and numbers. Anyway, back to the story. In other words, they won't let you work with your friend, huh? Katsuki said as he looked at Izuku's card. Izuku flinched away with a look of slight fear and apprehension. He looked down at his as well, with you peeking over his shoulder. He's in Battle Center B, he noted. Katsuki's probably right. And boy, does Izu look cute in his picture. Izuku seemed to be on the same wavelength as you. Why, you're right. Even though our examinee numbers are consecutive, we're assigned to different battle centers, he observed. You had to lean a little bit toward Izuku to see Katsuki's card, but you saw that his said, Battle Center A. Katsuki didn't reply to Izuku. He narrowed his eyes at the latter and rasped, Don't look. I'll kill you. Izuku cowered away, but you couldn't blame him. Katsuki swiveled his gaze back to the paper he held. Damn, now I can't crush you. Present Mike captured everybody's attention again by raising an arm into the air. 3 different types of foe villains are stationed in each battle center. The screen behind him blanked before returning with a picture of a miniature city. As the voice hero spoke, 3 black silhouettes flickered to life at the top and rightmost corners of the projection. The one in the top left corner was labeled as 1P, while the top right and lower right silhouettes were labeled 2P and 3P respectively. It was hard to discern what shape the foe villains were, but the 2P one looked remarkably like a scorpion. Present Mike continued presenting. You earn points for each of them based on their level of difficulty. Your goal, dear listeners, is to use your quirks to earn points by immobilizing the foe villains. A pixelated Present Mike was shown strolling up a street just as pixelated as he was on the screen, until he encountered a 1P villain. After pixelated Present Mike kicked it, it vanished, and the =0 at the top right immediately switched to =01. The screen repeated the cycle again, but this time with a second pointer, and then a third pointer. The top right now read =06. Real Present Mike then pointed at the audience. Of course, attacking other examinees and any other unheroic actions are prohibited. A tall person several rows ahead of you on the right shot out of their seat out of the blue. They stiffly raised a hand, asking, May I ask a question? Okay, Present Mike gave the person a thumbs up. A spotlight from above was turned on and lit the person who'd asked a question. Who you now saw was a blue-haired male that wore a pristine beige suit along with a blue tie and glasses. In his hand was a flyer that you recognized to be the printout given out to examinees prior to the orientation. On the printout, there are 4 types of villains, the BlueNet declared, pointing at the section depicting each one. If that is a misprint, then you, the most prominent school in Japan, should be ashamed of that foolish mistake. We examinees are here in this place because we wish to be molded into exemplary heroes. In addition, you over there with the curly hair. Here he set down his flyer and pivoted around to point accusingly in your direction. No, Izuku's. And he frowned when the greenette pointed at himself scaredly. You've been muttering this whole time. It's distracting. If you're here on a pleasure trip, then you should leave immediately. Izuku tried to sink into his chair with his hands over his mouth, whispering, I'm sorry. You narrowed your eyes at the stiff blue net, and then hissed at the laughing examinees around you to shut up. Stop laughing at Izu. It's a habit of his. And how dare you blue-haired idiot call him out in front of everybody. Okay. Examinee number 7A111. Thanks for the great message, Present Mike piped up, flapping his hands in the universal calm down and be quiet motion before making another thumbs up. Another silhouette appeared on the screen, in the last corner empty of any other silhouettes. Zopi appeared above it, and you frowned. Why would a villain be worth 0 points? The fourth type of villain is worth 0 points. That guy's an obstacle, so to speak. There's one in every battle center, an obstacle that will go crazy in narrow spaces. Pixelated Present Mike made a comeback, once again strolling down another street with his score of equals 06. He encountered this 0p silhouette, and after a pause that lasted only for a second, he turned tail and ran away from the other. It's not impossible to defeat, but there's no reason to defeat it either. I recommend that you listeners try to avoid it. Unpixelated, 4K Ood Present Mike struck a pose. Strange. A villain that you should stay away from. What sets it apart from the other ones, I wonder? The blue net, you'd forgotten about him? Oops, dropped into a bow stiffly. Why is he so stiff all the time? Thank you very much. Please excuse the interruption, he said. And he took his seat as the spotlight above turned off. You noticed movement in front of you. The same two boys who'd noticed Katsuki at the entrance earlier were talking. I see. It's like the obstacles you avoid in video games, huh? Whispered the brunette, while his friend listened intently. The whole thing is like a video game, the friend agreed. Present Mike made a motion that made him look like he was creating a rainbow with his hands. That's all from me. Finally, I'll give you listeners a present, our school motto. The hero Napoleon Bonaparte once said, "A true hero is someone who overcomes life's misfortunes." Go beyond. Plus ultra. Once more the screen behind him transitioned to the phrase, plus ultra, which had been designed to look like a sound effect from a comic book. Now, everyone, good luck suffering. It was almost time to enter the fake city, or, in other words, the battleground. After wishing Izuku good luck and Katsuki a very quick goodbye before running away to your assigned bus, therefore not giving the blonde the chance to blow you up, you'd nervously sat in the back of the bus. You played with the drawstrings of your black hoodie, twisting them this way and that while trying to ignore how socially awkward you were around strangers. Sure, you weren't afraid to speak up to defend yourself, or a friend, namely Izuku, or call out someone's bullshit. But when it came to normal communication, it was difficult for you to approach people you'd never spoken to before. Ordering food at a restaurant, for example, was a nightmare. As such, you avoided everybody else's gaze and settled for just staring out the window. The bus ride was over in a few minutes, however, and you exited the bus just to gape in disbelief when you saw the giant wall that ran along the entire perimeter of the fake city. That's huge, you muttered. I know, right? You yelped and whirled around to pin the stranger who'd startled you with a glare, but was surprised into silence when you saw a pink girl. Her hair was pink, her skin was pink, her clothes were pink. Granted, they were different shades of pink, but they were still pink all the same. The only exceptions were her sclerae and irises, which were respectively black and yellow. Small, tan horns also poked out of her short, curly hair. Hi, I'm Ashido Mina. The girl introduced herself enthusiastically. Your awkwardness decided to manifest itself at that moment. Hi, Ashido. I'm LNN. Your voice cracked at that last part. Horrified, you turned red and pulled even more harshly at your hoodie's drawstrings. Your name is so pretty. By some stroke of luck, Ashido either hadn't heard your embarrassing voice crack or simply ignored it. But LN-san, you can just call me Mina. We're already at that point. Then you can call me in, Ash Mina. You corrected yourself. Is she really going to be my third friend? Wow, that's so sad. I have only 2 friends, and that's including Katsu. Would he even be considered a friend? I wish we could talk more, but I think we're starting super soon. Mina narrowed her eyes at the other examinees around the both of you. you spied a boy with shaggy black hair, a girl with a long neck, a boy with purple hair that defied gravity, a boy with bricks for hands, and many more. Yeah, can I really do this? Self-doubt plagued your thoughts. Maybe Mom and Dad were right to doubt me. I've never even used this new power. What if I actually don't have it, despite the bond? A nudge from Mina jostled you from your little FML session. Hey, I see what you're doing. No negative thought, all right? See you at UA, hopefully in one of the hero classes, she grinned. And her encouragement was enough to fill you with courage and hope. I'd better see you there too, you responded with a smile of your own, finally believing you could do it. You can bet on it. And start. A voice boomed from a concrete tower to the right of the city's entrance. You had no idea who it was, and you had no time to do that when everybody was pushing past each other to sprint through the now open door. What up, hey? You grimaced when someone elbowed your torso in their attempt to push to the front of the crowd. You looked for Mina for help, but she was already a few steps ahead, secreting some kind of gray liquid from her hands that allowed her to slide past many examinees. The pink girl looked back at you and pumped an arm. Good luck. May the best ones win, she called. You stared at her, impressed by her bravery and drive. Then you smirked as your competitive side flared to life. Oh, it is so game on. It was chaotic. Mina had been swept away by the eager mass of hero hopefuls, not long after her pretty chill declaration of war. You yourself fought to not be pushed down and trampled over, hesitant to use All Might's quirk since you were still very much inexperienced with it. Oh, you muttered, but with one last lunge you made it out. You noticed others also straying from the flock, deciding to go their separate ways and trying their luck out that way. Drawing inspiration from those people, you darted into a side alley and slunk in its shadows. Almost immediately you ran into a one-pointer. Target acquired. I'll kill you, it droned. For such a flat and robotic tone, you could practically see the harm it promised you if you didn't take it down quickly. Oh, shit. You instinctively dove to the ground, just as something hot flew over your back. Turning your head to follow the path that the hot thing was taking, you gritted your teeth as you saw that it was a laser beam. That was too close. I'll kill you, the robot promised again. It made a whirring sound, and the red orb that was its eye looked like it was charging up. Is this how Link feels when I pit him against Guardians? You sweat dropped, thinking about all the times you played The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and made Link die repeatedly from a Guardian's laser blasts. I'm so sorry, Link. Luckily, you'd noticed earlier that there was a half-second of pause right after the charging sound, and then the laser would be shot out. Because of that, you at least now had an idea of when shots would be fired. And there's no fast traveling out of this either. Time to fight. You searched your surroundings for a weapon you could use. There were stones, and there was a metal pole that had a diameter that was about half of the size of your wrist. You grabbed it from the ground and dove for cover behind a considerably large chunk of concrete a few paces away. After the robot fired a second laser, you gathered your wits and leapt out from the debris, shouting a wordless battle cry as you shoved one end of your pole into the red circle that was the robot's eye. Heaving for air, you stayed perched on the robot, surprised that the pole had actually managed to break the eye. When the robot began to tilt, however, you were forced to jump off. Is that it? You wondered. You kicked the side of the fallen robot a few times just to make sure it was dead, and realized that your pole must have entered its head and messed up the wires inside enough to cause it to short-circuit and essentially die. The only reason it didn't electrocute you was because you'd had the precaution of wearing some sweet fake leather gloves. If you hadn't had them on, then you might have passed out from being shocked. That's great, you thought. Now I have a reliable way to fight. Slinging the pole over your shoulder, you continued making your way down the alley. You beat a few more robots into submission, although you weren't sure how many points they gave you. You'd already forgotten what each robot looked like. but you knew for a fact that none of them had been a zero-pointer, mostly due to their easy defeat. When you exited the alley at last, a surprise shout from the side caught your attention. You spied the purple-haired boy with gravity-defying hair from the entrance earlier doing his best to dodge lasers, but was not using his quirk for some reason. Instantly, you were running towards him. "Get out of the way," you yelled. He turned to you and his eyes widened. However, he quickly dove towards a building when a laser blasted dangerously close to his foot. With the guy safely out of the way, you took your trusty pipe and repeatedly thwacked the robot's head vertically until it powered down and collapsed with a caved-in head. Panting tiredly, you cast your gaze at the boy you'd saved. "Hey, you okay?" He sheepishly rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah, it just caught me off guard for a second there." Before you could stop yourself, you blurted out, "Why didn't you use your quirk to protect yourself?" The male raised an eyebrow at that. "You don't even know what my quirk is." You frowned. "Why would you not use it to defend yourself when you were clearly in trouble?" "Wait, were you trying to?" He shook his head wildly. "No, I wasn't trying to kill myself. I'm a depresso espresso, I know. But I'm in this exam because I want to become a hero." "Did you literally just call yourself a depresso espresso?" "Maybe it's an overused term, but that's what I identify as." 7 minutes left, blared the loudspeakers. You were reminded that you were still taking an exam, and that you shouldn't be wasting time arguing with this random guy who you decided would be called Depresso Espresso from now on. 8. Emma head out. "Be careful, Depresso Espresso." You heard a faint, "Why?" from the boy, but already you were running away to where you heard the most action. On the way there, you walloped even more robots, but unfortunately your metal pipe seemed to be beginning to lose its straight shape. It was slowly becoming more bent in a curve, although you were surprised it had even lasted this long. US certainly paid good money for the construction of their supplies, if everything was as durable as this simple pole. During your journey, you also made sure to save anybody in trouble. You probably didn't get any points for doing that, but you couldn't stand watching people get hurt when you clearly had the capability to help them. The people you saved were not weak by any means, but had accidentally cornered themselves with no way to use their quirks effectively. It was then that you would jump into action. "How much more time do I have?" you wondered. 4 minutes left. "Ah, yes. Thank you, Present Mike." Suddenly the ground shook furiously. A deep rumbling reverberated in your ears, almost as though they were being stuffed with cotton. Screams pierced through the figurative cotton, though, and you whirled around to face the center of the city with wide eyes. A giant metal hand reached out of the dust that plagued the direction you were facing, before clenching onto the rooftop of what appeared to be a flat, double-story apartment building. Other unfortunate buildings wailed and creaked before collapsing. Each building sent shockwaves through the earth upon impact and fractured into small pieces of debris. It looked like a scene straight out of a horror movie. "What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck?" you yelled as you ran towards the epicenter of all the racket. What if there are people that need saving? What even was that thing with the giant hand? Is Yua trying to kill us? What are you doing? Someone yelled at you, while they used their common sense and ran away from the chaos. "Do you want to die?" "Maybe," you snarked. But honestly, you were terrified out of your mind. Would Yua really go as far as to injure a bunch of teenagers in only the entrance exam? "Oh man, I really am gonna die." You made it to a large plaza-like clearing at the city center. You froze, horrified, catching sight of a giant robot that made all the other robots you'd fought seem like ants. Other examinees were sprinting past you, looking scared out of their minds. "Run, run," one screeched with erratically flailing arms. "Turn around," a different person yelled at you. "Don't eat me like I'm a Ren's mom," another wailed. Youch. That last comment hit sorta hard, not gonna lie. Your inner thoughts, however, stopped once you spied a few people struggling to run away. whether it be from injuries they had received prior or from lack of stamina. Selecting some random blonde that looked like he was having the most trouble, you changed direction towards him. "Hey, you, blondie." He looked up at you with wide eyes. "Huh? Me? What other blondies are there here?" "Yes, you." This reminds me of that one time when I did a Spanish oral project, and some of the lines my group had were literally "Equiane, yo." And she, too, lol. You grabbed his arm and tried to help him balance, since it seemed like he might have injured his ankle somehow. After several stressful seconds in which the blonde guy nearly toppled over, you managed to get him to lean some of his weight on you before pulling him in the opposite direction of the giant robot. "This way." "Why are you helping me?" He sounded confused. You looked at him weirdly. I don't know if you've noticed yet, but your foot seems a little, hurt." He turned red, but whether it was out of embarrassment or anger you didn't know. "I know that. It's just that everybody's trying to trample each other while running away from whatever the hell that is, and you just come out of nowhere to help me." "Not that I even needed help anyway," he added. "That's what heroes do, though," you said. "Heroes always help those in need, even if it gets them nearly killed." As if proving your point, the giant robot roared, and your pace hastened as the buildings surrounding the two of you groaned ominously. "I think we might actually die here," the boy said matter-of-factly. "I think so too," you responded with a tone just as flat. You looked at each other. Then, the two of you began screaming and running for your lives. "Blondie," and you made it to the city entrance. Amidst the confusion of screaming and running, you'd encountered what was possibly the last two-pointer robot. It had barreled down the street directly at you, and the boy with the robot's favorite catchphrase of "I'll kill you," and hurled your pole at it, taking it down and breaking your makeshift weapon for good. Other people were already at the entrance, wringing their hands and anxiously glancing at the now distant roars of the zero-pointer before making awkward eye contact at each other. It was as though a mom had invited a bunch of distant relatives to her child's birthday party, and the invitees studiously avoided each other. They were all strangers, after all. You knew from personal experience. Birthdays were meant to be fun. But when an unfamiliar uncle from your mom's side 16 times removed, don't even ask why, comes and offers to take you on a first-class cruise through Tasmania with his coworker, you get so creeped out that you just want the party to end so you don't have to see him ever again. This was the case with this exam. Everyone was so confused and just wanted everything to end with them preferably still alive. "That robot's still not stopping," muttered some guy. Ignoring him, you helped Blondie take a seat on the ground. "I think your ankle's just sprained," you observed before tentatively touching the red, swollen area. "Ouch," he jolted. "Watch it." "Sorry." You snatched back your hand as though it had just been burned. "It's fine." Blondie groaned. "At least we're out now. Anyhow, what's your name?" "Oh, that's right. I've been calling him Blondie this whole time, and we don't even know each other's names." "LNN. Nice to meet you." "Monoma Nito." "Cool. How you feeling, Monoma?" "Like shit." You were going to reply, but apparently the test was never going to end, because the zero-pointer reappeared with a roar. "No way," all the examinees said. You all backed away from the entrance. "There's no way that thing will go past city limits, right?" Monoma asked. But you didn't know if he was asking you or himself. You decided to play it safe and just answer him in case he was talking to you. "I don't think so. I mean, the staff would be insane to." The zero-pointer broke through the entrance, completely obliterating the geometric arch that made up the top of the door. "All right, they're insane. We gotta get away." Monoma struggled to stand up. "No, sit down, mister." And you shoved him back down, although you made sure not to aggravate his ankle. "I've got this." He looked up at you in disbelief, looking as though you just told him that you murdered all his kittens. "Did he even have kittens?" "Don't tell me." "Okay, then I won't tell you," you snarked. You turned your attention to the giant zero-pointer and narrowed your eyes in determination. Adios. Wait, that's not what I meant. You're mad if you think you can take that thing down. Clearly only someone like me can do that. Oh, so he was pulling the "I am so cool and way out of anyone's league" card. I'm not sure if that's your misogyny, ego, or conceitedness that's saying that. Oh, shut it. Maybe it's my ego. Don't laugh at me. I swear to God, but seriously, is your quirk really enough? Probably better than yours. Although you didn't know it yet, yours was definitely more powerful than his in this case. 1 minute left. In any case, I'm about to find out if I have enough power to stop the robot. You gave Monoma a side glance. He was still staring at you. You ignored the thinly veiled incredulity in his eyes. Why are you staring? Do you want to give me a kiss for luck or something? His face scrunched up into an expression of disgust. What the hell? No, just go. You laughed. I was just joking. Well, wish me luck anyway. You dashed toward the robot who was trying to smush some panicking examinees. I'm never gonna step on another ant in my life. One sobbed as they unsuccessfully tried to blowtorch the robot with their super awesome quirk of turning their arms into fire. You sincerely hoped that this exam didn't give anybody trauma. If it did, then Yua would have a lot of explaining to do to some angry parents. Focus in. Try to remember. What did All Might say to do in order to harness his power? As you came to a stop in front of the robot, ignoring the danger you were in, you tried to remember what All Might had said earlier that morning. I don't have enough time to explain in detail, so I'll just tell you this. When you use my quirk, one for all, squeeze your buttocks and yell this inside your heart. Smash. You yelled along with the memory of All Might, rearing your arm backwards and letting it snap forward with all your strength. Pink lines crisscrossed your arm, glowing with raw power and making you feel unstoppable. The rush of power was something you were unused to, but soon you found yourself wishing to feel even more. Unfortunately, once your arm actually made contact with one of the robot's legs, the rush was traded for pain. You gave a loud cry of pain as the bones in your forearm shattered and dug deep into the surrounding tissue. The skin on the outside of the same arm darkened into a dreadful purple color, and the entire arm itself flopped downwards, unable to be moved and/or used anymore. Luckily, the one punch was enough. The gargantuan robot's leg had imploded from the force, with shrapnel narrowly and miraculously avoiding your vulnerable figure. It no longer resembled the continuous tread of an army tank. It had actually been completely destroyed to the point where it was just dust. This power, you thought in wonder. With one less leg to hold it up, the zero-pointer leaned precariously to the side before its weight dragged it down with the help of gravity. The resulting shockwave that followed the fall shook everybody so badly that your teeth rattled, and you nearly bit off the tip of your tongue as the earth itself jumped. The fall also damaged the robot. Half of its head had crumpled, and some of its strange beady, red eyes had cracked while others had fallen out. The body in general looked like some other zero-pointer had gone apeshit on it. Time's up, President Mike declared, and murmurs began to start. That girl. What was that strength? Even though nobody else could. LN, what the fuck was that? Monoma was hopping towards you, with a look of begrudging respect, disbelief, and also some other unreadable emotion in his eyes. You weakly smiled at him. I don't even know, you replied, and then you collapsed, having lost consciousness. A week later. You poked at your food with your chopsticks. The exam had been exactly a week ago, and you were pretty confident with your results. The written exam was not as difficult as you had expected, but it was still pretty hard. The lowest grade you figured that you could possibly get was maybe a low B, or at least a high C. A score of a seemed outlandish, but you most likely received a score somewhere in the B range. On the other hand, you were significantly less confident about the physical exam. Sure, you'd whacked a pretty big number of robots with your trusty pole. but there was no way that could compare to others who had spent all their lives mastering their innate superpowers. Plus, you'd lost count of your points somewhere around the 8.5-minute mark. If you had to guess, maybe you'd gotten around 25 points. That would be equivalent to around 12 two-pointers or 8 three-pointers. You hadn't even done anything that would set you apart from the rest. Maybe you did topple the 0-pointer. But that thing, as its name implied, was worth a whopping 0 points. And you'd injured your arm by doing that. It was broken so badly that you were lucky Yua High had Recovery Girl there to give you a very scary healing kiss. Distantly, you wondered if Izuku had also felt your painful injury, or if the two of you had been lucky enough to somehow both injure the same arm at the exact same time, thus canceling the other out. "Honey, are you all right?" your mother asked, concerned. You were jolted out of your thoughts. "Huh? Oh, yeah, Mom. I was just thinking." Your mom hummed in acknowledgement before helping herself to another serving of okonomiyaki. "I heard that the Yua letters will be coming soon. Maybe even today, if we're lucky." "Yup." Your father didn't speak as usual. He seemed to always close himself off when either you or your mother brought up the subject of heroes. You'd always known that he disliked the very idea of them. Maybe it was because his soulmate had nearly died thanks to a pro-hero's mistake. Whatever it was, it made him very unsupportive of your ambition to become a hero. He disliked it so much that he had hardly talked to you for nearly the past year, ever since you told your parents all about your plan to train to become a hero, leaving out the part about All Might, of course. And he would silently change the TV channel every time a hero was mentioned. He'd never reacted to one of your decisions so badly before, so you were nervous around him. You could practically feel your relationship with your father becoming so distant and unbearable, it was barely holding on by a thread. "Oh, I've forgotten to get the mail today," your mom tittered upon realizing that. "If you've finished eating, can you go check the box?" You'd had enough food, so you replied, "Sure." Leaving the dinner table and grabbing the box keys, you stuffed your feet into some outdoor slippers before exiting the apartment. You glanced at the Midoriya's door and frowned. Should you drop by and say hi? Izuku hadn't spoken to you much ever since the exam, whether it was over the phone or face-to-face. Maybe he didn't do so hot in the exams. You just hoped that he could get over the weird funk he was in and open up to you. You didn't want to pressure him into talking, but you did want to offer him a shoulder to lean on. It felt strange walking to and from school without having a hyper-greenette chatting your ear off about the latest hero news. After you walked down 2 flights of stairs to the ground floor of the apartment building, you approached the cluster of mailboxes arranged in a large square on the wall. Locating your apartment's number on a box on the very left, you unlocked it and pulled out the contents within. You shuffled through each of them. Bills, advertisements. Bills, a calling card for jury duty. Bills, and a pristine white envelope sealed with red wax with the words Yua High School printed neatly on the bottom right corner. "This is it," you squealed to yourself, beyond yourself with happiness and excitement. "My whole future depends on the letter inside of this." You quickly made your way back to your apartment, announcing your return and tossing the rest of the mail on the kitchen counter before retreating to your room. Giving yourself only a few seconds to brace yourself, you ripped open the envelope. Contrary to your prediction, there was not only a letter inside, but also a gray, circular disc. This disc soon began to project an image of some homeless-looking dude with long black hair and eye bags. "Congratulations," he said. It didn't sound very congratulatory. "You did average on the written test, and you have accumulated a total of 74 points in the physical exam." 74? You repeated. "Did I really defeat that many robots?" "Now, you may be wondering why you have so many points," homeless guy continued. His eyes narrowed. The physical exam had 2 categories of points that examinees could receive: villain points and rescue points. While you only had 26 villain points, you were able to save many people and thus obtained 48 rescue points. "Congratulations. You have tied with one other person for second place in the entrance exams. Goodbye. The projection shut off. You were so surprised you didn't think about homeless guy's abrupt farewell. Second place. I didn't think I'd be able to get so many points. Well, I guess it would be weird if the top hero school in the country didn't take into account how students save others. Suddenly, your phone lit up with a buzz, displaying a notification from a messaging app. Messaging. Best broccoli boy. Best broccoli boy. NN. Sent 7:38 p.m. You. Izu. Did you get your letter? Sent 7:38 p.m. Best broccoli boy. Of course. We live in the same building lol. Sent 7:38 p.m. You. Oof, be quiet. Sent 7:38 p.m. So, how did it go? Sent 7:39 p.m. I bet you got in, right? 3. Sent 7:39 p.m. Best broccoli boy. I did. Sent 7:39 p.m. Did you? 0. Sent 7:39 p.m. You. Yup. Sent 7:39 p.m. This is our first step to becoming heroes. Sent 7:39 p.m. You waited for Izuku to reply to your last text, and when the buzz of your ringtone alerted you to a new text, you eagerly checked your messages. However, it was someone different that had sent you a text. Messaging. Katsu. Hey. Sent 7:39 p.m. You had to do a double take. Was Katsuki actually texting you? Honestly, you'd forgotten you even had his phone number since the last time the two of you texted or called was years ago. The only reason why you still had his number saved was because you felt that there were too many good childhood memories with the explosive blonde to just throw down the drain and pretend never existed. Katsu. Woman, I'm talking to you. Sent 7:40 p.m. You. Hi, Katsu. Sent 7:40 p.m. Katsu. Did you get in? Sent 7:40 p.m. You sweat dropped. So straight to the point. You. I did. WBU. Sent 7:40 p.m. Katsu. Off guy did. Who TF do you think I am? Sent 7:40 p.m. You. Haha, of course you did. Sent 7:40 p.m. Katsu. Are you fucking mocking me, Butterfingers? Sent 7:40 p.m. Why is he so hard to talk to? Stop taking offense to everything. Holy crap. You. Nope, I'm not. Sent 7:40 p.m. Well, I hope we get in the same class. Sent 7:40 p.m. Katsu. Whatever. Sent 7:40 p.m. You. Good night then. Saya at school. Sent 7:41 p.m. Katsuki left you on read, but you didn't think about it too much. He was just the kind of person who would sometimes acknowledge you and other times completely ignore you. After knowing him since childhood, you'd become accustomed to the way he acted. You were like 68% sure that he at least thought the word goodbye in his head after seeing your text. Hopefully. Then your phone did that thing where it buzzed again after a notification was left unread for 2 minutes. Realizing that this time it was Izuku who'd sent you a message, you entered the chat room you shared with him. Messaging. Best broccoli boy. Best broccoli boy. Yup. I'm really excited, D. Sent 7:40 p.m. Also, I gotta go now. Good night. Sent 7:40 p.m. You. I'm excited too. T-tile and good night. Sent 7:42 p.m. With all your texts sent out, you turned off your phone and plugged it into your charger before lounging lazily on your bed. You couldn't wait to start school at UA High and meet new people. And maybe you'd find the one there. But almost as soon as you thought about the one, you shook your head in embarrassment. No way, I did not just think that. I'm turning into a Disney princess. Then you realized that some princesses were actually pretty cool, like Princess Tiana as well as Mulan. Was the latter really a princess though? Maybe I could like being a Disney princess, you thought. And then you closed your eyes hoping for a night with good dreams. The next day at school, which also happened to be the last day of the school year, went swimmingly. That is, if swimmingly meant that you sucked balls at swimming and were drowning somewhere in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle. Somehow your class had caught wind of your participation in U.S. entrance exams, despite the teacher having not declared it out loud. They'd been terrorizing and taunting you as much as they could for participating, even with your 2 useless quirks. At first you thought it had been Katsuki who told everybody, since he always seemed determined to find an opportunity to antagonize or embarrass you. However, it wasn't the case, so you still didn't know who spread the word. Not that it mattered. Joke's on them. You actually got second place. As usual, you spent the day ignoring whatever derogatory wisdom the mean girls had to share with you. Yesterday they told you that you were like a step stool, useless for anything and everything except for people to step on for their own benefit. After getting over your genuine awe that they had actually said something relatively clever for once in their lives, you told them that if you were a step stool, then they were outdated toilets, ugly as hell and full of shit. Needless to say, they hadn't been very happy, and you were forced to run away before the lead girl's toxin quirk could crop your hair a good few inches. It had been a nice laugh though, so you didn't regret saying what you did at all. Izu. You sing-songed as you found him sitting underneath the shade of a giant oak behind the school. The 2 of you had been sitting underneath the tree for the 3 years that you'd been attending Aldera Junior High. It offered shade with its leafy boughs, and its wide trunk served as shelter for you guys from potential bullies. The only downside was that sometimes the grass would get irritatingly itchy, but spending time with Izuku made this part easy to ignore. Izuku looked up from his bento box. Inside was a simple meal of katsudon, white rice, and tamagoyaki. "Hi," he said when he saw you. You plopped yourself down next to him, eagerly pulling out your own box. Opening it, you licked your lips in delight. Your mother had truly outdone herself today. Tucked neatly inside separate compartments were onigiri, salted seaweed salad, pickled radish, and gyoza. The heavenly smell made you even more hungry than you already were if possible, and you fished around in your bag for the container with your metal chopsticks. "Can you believe we actually made it into UA?" you asked your friend conversationally. "I know, right?" Izuku replied through a mouth full of white rice. "What place did you get?" "I tied for second." You finally found your chopsticks, and you impatiently popped open the case so that you could eat your lunch as soon as possible. Izuku gasped in excitement. "Wow, that's so good, Nen." You blushed. "Awa, thanks dude. What place did you get?" "7th. "That's really good too," you exclaimed. "And didn't you have only rescue points?" He nodded. "Honestly, I'm still a little shocked about it. I was so sure I failed. And then suddenly they shoved a bunch of secretly added points into my face." You hummed in agreement. "Here, have a congratulatory gyoza." You picked up one of the small dumplings and offered it to your best friend. He turned red. Are you sure?" "Of course. It tastes really good, and I actually made some of them last night. I burnt a few, but we ate those ones for dinner, so these are all good." "You made them? That's amazing." "I know, and they turned out okay. Try it and let me know what you think." Izuku opened his mouth, and you brought your chopsticks closer. "Here comes the airplane tilde," you couldn't help but tease. Once again he flushed a red, this time more vibrant than before, but you managed to stick the gyoza in before he could lean away in embarrassment. Immediately he forgot about his flusteredness and his eyes widened in surprise as he chewed. "This is so good," he exclaimed. "You'd better. I spent like 3 hours on this shit," you complained. "But seriously, I'm glad you liked it. Maybe I can cook more for you in the future." Is this foreshadowing? If everything you make is this good, then I wouldn't object to that, Izuku joked. Then you've got to try my onigiri. You knew it sounded like you were trying to flex your practically non-existent cooking skills. You did help. But your mother did most of the work because you always managed to ruin a lot of things in the kitchen. But you really wanted Izuku to try out the food you made. I think this one's spicy salmon, you added, picking one up and guessing. How spicy? Not too spicy? You don't sound very sure. I'm not sure at all. Okay, fine, I'll try it. He tentatively nibbled at a corner. If the onigiri had been store-bought, then he would have gotten a mouthful of only plain rice. But because it was homemade, you made sure the external layer of rice was as thin as possible to maximize the amount of salmon filling you could put in. This is also really good, too. You blushed with delight. You're not lying, right? You're not going to throw up or anything. You were approximately 70% sure he was lying about your food just so he wouldn't hurt your feelings. He was just the kind of guy who would rather hurt himself than make someone feel bad, unless it was a villain. Also, you wouldn't forgive yourself if Izuku came down with some kind of food poisoning or stomach sickness due to your cooking. No, I'm not. This is actually really good. Thank you so much for sharing your lunch with me. He gave you a close-eyed smile, making your heart skip a beat. Confused, you pat the area above your chest. Why did you feel that way? Why was Izuku's smile making you feel so warm and happy? You coughed to make the strange feelings go away. No problem, you said, and it would have sounded normal had your voice not chosen to speak in a higher octave at that moment. Izuku gave you a weird look. Are you okay? He asked. Oh, and do you want some of my bento? You laughed awkwardly and pushed what had just happened out of your mind. Nah, it's fine. Thanks though. Anyway, you look around to see if there was anyone who was within eavesdropping distance. Seeing no one in the immediate vicinity, you continued. Has that guy contacted you yet? Izuku quickly adopted a serious expression. Yeah, he called me the night after we received our results from UA. Did you know he's going to be teaching the hero course next year? You looked at him, surprised. No way. He bounced up and down. Yes way. It's only going to be for Class 1A, though, he added with a frown. You returned his frown with one of your own. What's with the frown? Well, what if we don't get in Class 1A? He asked nervously. You rolled your eyes. Izu, come on. They'd be dumb not to let you in. Me, maybe not. I'm not as smart or as innovative with quirks as you are. Have you seen the analysis you do on quirks that you've seen for, like, only 30 seconds? That part about you is not true, Izuku protested. When you still didn't look at him, finding the rest of your lunch very interesting, he gingerly placed his hand on one of yours. Izu? Your eyes flew up to meet his in shock. He was red, but still he spoke. I know you. I also know how brave you are, how kindly you treat others, and everything you do. You're an amazing person. I wish you'd see that too. That makes you sound like a stalker. No, it doesn't. His hand left yours to join the other in covering his blushing face. Ignoring the fact that your hand now felt strangely empty and cold, you chucked. Besides, I'm not that brave. When we were younger, it was mostly you who stood up to Katsu, you said. You stayed by my side whenever that happened. And you decided to continue being my friend, even though you wouldn't have been bullied so much if you'd avoided me, he countered. You scoffed. As if I'd throw away a childhood friendship for one that would last, like, 1 year tops? I'd never leave you, Izu. Although you didn't see it, you had turned your head to glare at some crows that were unnecessarily battling to the death over half a salami a few paces away. Izuku stared at you with a soft gaze. He could not figure out why there were so many butterflies fluttering in his stomach these days when he was near you. But he supposed it was because he couldn't believe how lucky he was to have you in his life. You too treasured Izuku and his presence in your daily life. You couldn't imagine any other person you could feel comfortable sitting around in silence, not even your parents. You only hoped that the two of you could stay as close together as now, once the new school year started at UA. You shuffled around in front of Izuku's apartment. Summer had been fun, but it was now over, and you'd been forced by your mother to wake up at 5:30 and to prepare for your first day at UA High. After going to bed at extremely late times, and then waking up in the afternoon every single day for several consecutive months, you'd ruined your sleep schedule, and it showed. You tried to rub away your eye bags as you waited for Izuku to exit, so that the two of you could walk to UA together. Too out of it to realize that one does not simply rub eye bags away. You just knew that you'd be running on fumes for most of the day. Hopefully that triple shot coffee you chugged down earlier would be enough to keep you going. Finally Izuku came out, and you were jealous of how awake and refreshed he looked. He looked at your appearance in surprise. Did you not sleep enough? You had to process what he said for about 3 seconds. No, I had a good 3 hours last night. Or should I say this morning? I don't know, I'm too tired. You should sleep more, he said worriedly. Bah, why would I do that when fanfics exist? I read until the words on the screen start blurring and the phone falls on my face. Izuku's sweat dropped. I don't think that's healthy. I am the definition of unhealthy, Izu. I thought you knew that. Anyway, we gotta go, or we'll be late to our first day of school. He looked at the time on his phone. Oh, you're right, he said. Well then, onwards we go. You yelled half-heartedly, not having enough energy to say it enthusiastically. You looped your arm through his, ignoring his surprised sputters, and pulling him down the corridor towards the staircase. This place is huge. How the hell are we supposed to find anything? You stuck your head through one of US doorways, expecting to see a classroom. But it turned out to be an aquarium. Did they literally just install an aquarium for absolutely no reason at all in a hero school? Izuku shrugged. As if you wouldn't do that, he muttered playfully. You gave him a hard stare as you closed the door behind you. You know, you're totally right, you admitted. Heck, I would add a freaking zoo if I had to build a school. And every Saturday at 5 p.m., there would be a friendly dance-off between two random animals. I would pit a penguin against a giraffe and see who pulls off the best worm. So everybody should be glad that you're not an architect, Izuku concluded. Or a zookeeper. It's their loss. A giraffe doing the worm sounds pretty sick, not gonna lie. He laughed. Anyway, if you're done, I think we should go down that hallway next. He pointed at a hallway conjoined to the one you were both currently in. You frowned. And how do you know? I have a hunch. Izu, you've led us down 17 wrong hallways on hunches. Your hunches suck ass. End of discussion. Well, you've led us down 19 wrong ones, he argued. You scowl. Mister, we are talking about you right now, not me. Plus, I never called them hunches. They were guesses. NN, he whined with wide, sparkling eyes. Oh no, he's pulling the dreaded puppy eyes. Must. Resist. Please just trust me one more time. Fuck. Sure, you said, turning away with a huff to disguise the blush on your cheeks. How dare you fall for his puppy dog eyes for the millionth time? You would have thought that you had some kind of immunity to it after experiencing it for years on end. But no dice. You could never resist it. Great. His puppy eyes disappeared, and he began lightly jogging down the hallway he selected. I'm a little bit more than half sure this one is the right one. It had better be, honestly. The only reason why we're not late is because we woke up and left our apartments at the ass crack of dawn. And then, 5:30 is not the crack of dawn. Plus, I literally told you to sleep earlier yesterday. Don't you remember? And I did. I slept it too. That's practically a world record. You should really start sleeping more, he chided. He looked like he wanted to say more, but suddenly his eyes caught something, and they widened in joy. There it is. You followed his gaze. Oh, that's one big door. The door to Class 1A's classroom stretched from the floor, and nearly all the way to the ceiling. It towered above you and your friend, easily 4 times your size. Izuku was speechless. But then he regained his voice. Is it for accessibility? Seems like the most logical answer. You agreed inwardly. The sight of the male next to you tensing up caught your attention. The elite chosen from the big number at the exam, he started to say. That's us, you chimed in. He nodded, but then grimaced and reached out a hand to open the door. As he began to slide the door to the right, he said, I hope we're not in the same class as the scary people. Don't put your feet on the desk. Ha! Two familiar voices reached our ears as Izuku stilled in front of you, leaning forward to gaze into the classroom over Izuku's shoulder. You were dismayed to find Katsuki and the blue-haired boy from the auditorium. Katsuki would not hesitate to make the lives of both of you hell, and on the other hand, the brunette had not given you a very good first impression either. Don't you think that's rude to the Yua upperclassmen and the people who made the desk? The brunette was scolding. Katsu won't like that. Plus, would the upperclassmen really care about that? Or the manufacturers? Nope. Katsuki sneered. What junior high did you go to, you side character? Brunette gasped, taken aback, before schooling his features and placing a hand on his chest. I attended Sumi Private Academy. My name is Ida Tenya. Katsuki's eyes gleamed. Sumi, he said mockingly. So you're a damn elite, huh? Looks like I'll have fun crushing you. He leaned forward and smiled a rather terrifying smile. Crushing? Brunette, apparently named Ada, gasped again rather dramatically and reeled back. That's cruel. Do you truly aim to be a hero? Katsuki opted not to answer, and instead turned away from Ida with a scoff. Unfortunately, that brought his attention to you and Izuku, who was still cowering by the door, even though you'd entered the room already. Ida followed his gaze and his eyes widened when they saw Izuku behind you. Ida faltered, but he stiffened and marched toward the door. As a result, everybody else in the room went, huh, and collectively turned to stare at you and your best friend. Hi, you said, inching back toward Izuku. Why was everybody staring at the two of you so unabashedly? Izuku had an even harder time keeping his composure. He was madly blushing, avoiding eye contact, sweating bullets, and fidgeting with his backpack straps. Those were practically the four biggest no-nos of public speaking. Your old teacher would have given him a big fat D in the public speaking category had he acted like this in class. Maybe even a D+ if he was lucky and the teacher was having a good day. Good morning, Ida interrupted as he marched to you. I am from Sumi Private Academy. My name is... I heard. You and Izuku said at the same time with hands raised in the universal surrendering position. Jinx, you wanted to say. But then Izuku continued talking. I'm Midoriya. Nice to meet you, Ida. And this is... You picked up where he left off. LNN. It's a pleasure. You mentally pat yourself on the back when you finish speaking. Yes, I said that without a single voice crack and without excess awkwardness. You go, girl. One goal down. Next on the bucket list, be besties with Hawks and hug him lots. Ida gave a firm nod of acknowledgement before focusing on Izuku. Midoriya, you realized there was something more to that practical exam, didn't you? He asked. He closed his eyes as though he was ashamed of himself. I had no idea. I misjudged you. You sent Izuku a confused look. What in the world was this brunette talking about? Was this an apology for the way he acted in the auditorium? Or did the two have more interactions afterward? You'd seen Ida climb the steps into Izuku's bus with stiff legs before getting into your own, so you assumed that they had been in the same battle center. Ida blazed on. I hate to admit it, but you are better than me. Sorry, Izuku said in reply as he sweat dropped. I didn't actually realize anything. Before anyone in the classroom could say anything else, the classroom door slid open again, and an excited gasp was emitted from the person who had appeared. Oh, that curly hair. You're the plain-looking one. The plain-looking one, you muttered. I am so confused right now. Ida's talking about one thing, And now a new person's talking about another thing. And not to mention I'm being left out of the loop. You swiveled your head to observe the newcomer and was surprised to see that kind girl who had stopped Izuku from tripping. Speaking of, you turned to your best friend. He was blushing red and seemed to be admiring the girl's body. Your sweet Izuku. Was this still your best friend? No way, that was probably an alien pretending to be him. The male you knew since birth would never pay such close attention to other girls. It was slightly unnerving and strangely annoying to see. You passed, just like Present Mike said. The brown-haired girl squealed. Of course he did, you piped in with an indifferent expression. Of course you did, Mysterious Girl agreed as she threw a punch into the air. But her eyes did not leave Izuku. Your punch was amazing. Oh, right. Izu told me that he'd also unleashed his power in the last few seconds of the exam in order to take down the zero-pointer and save someone. Wait. Don't tell me that the person he saved was. Break, 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 she chanted. Oh, well, it was thanks to you going to speak to him directly that Mysterious Girl stopped chanting, the happy look on her face transforming into one of confusion. Hey, me too. I'm also confused as hell. Please enlighten us as to what the absolute fuck is going on right now. Midoriya Izuku. Jesus, did he on purposely not tell me everything that happened? Huh, the brunette asked. How did you know about that? Oh, that's because, Izuku covered his face, obviously too flustered to speak properly. You didn't know how to feel about that. How could this one girl be so impactful on your best friend? You didn't notice, but a certain brunette was observing your slightly irritated facial expression with one of curiosity. Before looking over to the other girl, and to Izuku before realization dawned in his eyes. Oblivious to anyone other than Izuku, the girl just continued speaking over the brunette's stuttered words. I wonder if today's just the entrance ceremony and orientation. I wonder what our teacher's like, she ranted, seemingly not even focusing on the real world anymore. She was gazing off into the distance weirdly, not that Izuku noticed with his embarrassed smile and arms covering his face. It's so close, he mumbled in a panic, but he didn't sound too bothered about it. You stared at him in disbelief before trying to calm down by telling yourself that Izuku wasn't doing anything wrong. And the truth was that he wasn't. But these feelings, what were these fucking feelings? Why did you feel so annoyed? You didn't want to be annoyed. You could see that the girl was genuinely a kind girl, but that didn't stop the ugly feelings from bubbling within you. Aren't you nervous? The girl babbled. Man, you really needed to figure out her name. Addressing her as the girl and Mysterious Girl was becoming rather tiresome. Once again, a new voice interrupted the conversation. Was it really a conversation? It was just the girl talking at Izuku, not even to him. Everybody seemed to have forgotten social etiquette today. And it looked like today was also confused the shit out of in day. Whoop-de-freaking-do. It was a national holiday, you're sure? In any case, the aforementioned voice seemed to be coming from the ground behind the brunette girl. Go somewhere else if you want to play at being friends, it said flatly. Izuku gasped, and so did Mysterious Girl. The latter turned around, and she stepped closer to Izuku when she found the origin of the voice, probably to get some semblance of safety. You honestly didn't even know. Trying to understand other people was hard. You ignored them though, and focused on the figure laying on the ground, zipped up inside of a sleeping bag that was surprisingly a bright, garish yellow. Your eyes widened, recognizing him as the man who had welcomed you to UA through the digital recording that the school had sent through the mail all those months ago. This is the hero course, the scruffy man continued. He unzipped his bag and brought a juice pack to his mouth. He slurped for all of 2 seconds, meeting the eyes of you and the other 3 people next to you. Finally, he placed his juice pack back into the depths of his sleeping bag before standing up. You couldn't help but imagine him as a caterpillar and unzipping his bag some more, just enough to step out. Okay, it took 8 seconds before you were quiet. Time is limited. You kids are not rational enough. He must be our teacher, you mused, since he implied that he was waiting for everybody in class to quiet down. That must also mean he's a pro hero. But I don't remember ever seeing him before. Other than in the welcome letter. I mean, maybe Izu knows him. A glance at the mail, however, showed you that even your hero fanatic of a friend didn't recognize the hobo-looking man in front of you. The man introduced himself tiredly. I'm your homeroom teacher, Aizawa Shota. Nice to meet you. His tone made it sound like he defined the word nice as hell. He plunged his hand into his sleeping bag, scrounging around for a bit before pulling out some fabric colored with a familiar red, white, and blue. The American flag. Just kidding. In his hand was a UA gym uniform, although you question why your sensei had it in his bag in the first place. Like, who just keeps a gym uniform in their sleeping bag? Actually, who even brings a sleeping bag to class? It's kind of sudden, Aizawa said. But put this on and go out onto the field. You blinked in surprise. Was this normal? It looked as though the new class 1A would be skipping the typical first day events. Not that it matters, you noted, and you fisted your hand. This is UA High, top hero academy in all of Japan. This is a new beginning for me. This is my first step to becoming a hero, and I will do my best to make my future the one I've always wanted it to be. And I'll do it. You stole a glance at Izuku, and your gaze softened at his face, which was just as surprised as your own from before, if not more. I'll do it with him.